Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. Welcome to this week's episode. My guest today is Nida Leard, founder of Nida Leard Consulting, where she advises world-class experts to become what she terms legendary market outliers. Her goal is to help coaches, consultants and business experts build a truly innovative business that stands out from the rest. Nida refers to herself as a multi-potentialite, and I was as curious as you probably are to know exactly what does that mean. And of course, you'll find that out during the course of this episode. Nida is also the author of 1 to Millions Entrepreneur, host of the Nida Leard Podcast, and a former Fortune 500 executive with more than 2 decades experience in business, psychology and personal development. Clearly a very impressive resume, and I was keen to sit down with her for a conversation that covers topics like self-identity, motivation, creating psychological safety in your company culture, and how to take yourself from version 5.0 to 6.0 in both business and in life. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello Nida, welcome to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Hello Warren, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the podcast. Really looking forward to our discussion today, but I suppose for our listeners, it would be good just for you to set out a little bit about your kind of background and your history and how you've come to run the business, the consultancy business and coaching business that you're running today.
Yeah, so after I finished my master's degree from Sydney, I came back to my home country and I started working with L'Oreal, the cosmetic company. I worked for Unilever, so all the main kind of FMCG, fast-moving consumer good companies. And after a few years, I kind of discovered that it wasn't fulfilling for me to work in the corporate world. I later on discovered that it was because due to a personality type thing, I'm a rebellious kind of like rule breaker, so that didn't really do well working for corporate life. I'm always constantly like, well, why do we have to do things this way when there's a better way? I'm constantly challenging.
That challenging kind of mindset and questioning kind of approach.
Yeah. And I'm like, my greatest strength, which I discovered later, was ideation. So I'm constantly coming up with ideas. I'm highly curious. I need to be an inventor and a creator. And working in corporate life doesn't really allow that, at least not fully to the level that I wanted to do, right? So I left and I started a child development center, and I started to kind of like coach parents and consult parents, consulting with them and kind of helping them, how do you raise kids that will grow up or have high EQ, high emotional intelligence and resilience, have a great mindset, be kind, amazing people, future leaders, how do you do that? And sometimes it's not so easy for everyone if you haven't really been studying it, right? And everybody's put into that position to be a parent and you haven't gone to university studying these things, right? So that kind of like was the point where I discovered that I love psychology. I was born for this. I really literally felt that. And I didn't know that I have actually been doing this my whole life. When I think back, when we find our passion, we look back into our past. I really remembered that all my childhood friends would just call me and ask me their life problems. And I would listen and then I would give them kind of a solution. I never knew that was actually a skill. That was a special skill, right? And then, so I discovered that, okay, I really want to work with people. I really want to help people. And so that was kind of like the pivoting point from going from the business world into coaching adults that are also entrepreneurs and CEOs and high-level executives, but really on the mindset, the self-identity, or what we call self-image or self-concept, and also on the business strategy as well. So I come from a background of 22 years in the business world, but also like now currently 15 years in the psychology world. So it's kind of like business meets psychology. And yeah, so that's currently what I'm doing. And so I think that also the approach in how I coach my clients, or I do coaching and consulting, is different from how, you know, some people, I guess, would do it. Because some would be like purely consultant and they would focus on the strategy. But then the obstacle is sometimes coming from the mind or the self-image of that person, how they perceive themselves. Oh, I can't go to that level. That's not for me, you know. So I'm kind of like in the business world and the strategy side of it, and then on the self-identity, on the psychology side as well.
Perfect. There's so much already for me to question and talk about from that short intro, Nida. So brilliant. And I suppose the first thing is that piece around self-identity. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean by self-identity? I mean, is that the same as, say, self-awareness?
No, it's not the same actually. So, we those are very two important things that we talk about when we talk about self-development, right? So self-awareness is about knowing yourself. So knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, knowing your emotions, knowing where your emotions are actually coming from, what's causing this. And it also means, how do other people perceive you? Do you understand how other people perceive you accurately? So the higher the self-awareness you have, the smaller the gap between how you perceive yourself and how others perceive you. It will be quite close. Okay. So people that are kind of like what we call delusional, which is the opposite of self-awareness, is like, I perceive myself in one way, but actually the whole other people don't perceive me that way. So there's a big gap there. Then it probably means that you're not perceiving yourself, or you're not aware of, you know, what are you doing or how you're showing up and how do other people perceive you.
And how do you get people to realize that? We'll come on to self-identity, I suppose, but that self-awareness piece.
Yeah.
You know, when you come across somebody and you're sat in front of them, and perhaps you can, you know, just through questioning and your tactics and I'm sure tools that you use, you realise that they aren't very self-aware and they are slightly delusional. Yeah. How do you go about having that conversation with somebody?
Yeah, well, I would say like in coaching, everything is like direct. And I'm someone that's very, I say my coaching style is confrontational, meaning if I see something, I'm going to point it out. That's the reason you're working with me. It's not to be comfortable. It's to face the uncomfortable things. Yeah. And that's why you're actually paying to work with me, right? So they are pre-framed with that mindset before even working with me. If they listen to my content, they know I'm that kind of person. I'm not going to sugarcoat things, right? Yeah. And so when I see signs where there's something misalignment, like, okay, you say you're confident, but you're procrastinating on this, and this, and you're not doing this. And what you're sharing with me, how you showed up in this situation, that's not high self-esteem, for example. And I will point that out for them, you know, how through the stories that they share with me, how they're showing up in the coaching session, even the way they talk, even how they show up in the coaching session. So all these things, because of the experience, you know, I've been doing this thing for so long, you can see these things very clearly. And when I point it out, then they start to, oh, I never knew that before. And then they start to, when you focus on something, then you start to collect data on that specific thing, right? You bring that unawareness in from the unconscious mind into the conscious mind. Then you start to, oh, I see what this is about. And so the client will start to go out into the world and, you know, he or she will start to, oh, so this situation, I reacted this way. So that's actually.
And then they put it into context and they understand it, and then they can change their behavior, do something differently, or again, I suppose at that point become self-aware. So let's come back to the piece around what's self-identity then.
Yeah, well, self-identity, there are several words that kind of go in the same direction or mean something that's similar. So there's self-concept, there's self-perception, identity, or basically it's how you think you feel about yourself. It's how you feel about yourself on a deep level, even when nobody is looking, right? On the outside world, you might look like on social media, you might like, oh, I'm this confident, amazing person. Yeah. But when you come back home and you'll learn like, oh, I'm not good enough. You know, so it's about that feeling, how you think about yourself, what do you believe about yourself on a deep level.
Okay.
As a mother, as a parent, as a teacher, as a coach, as a employee, as a business owner, everything. How do you perceive yourself?
And that's true, isn't it? Because I suppose, on a bad day, we all put a kind of game face on, or we all put a performance on, and, how we're feeling inside and how we show up at work, how we lead, how we make decisions in our businesses will be affected because there is this gap. Yeah. And so if we've got somebody, business owner, business leader listening to this podcast and they realise there's a gap, they're quite often, in my terms, putting the game face on or putting a performance on. And there is this big gap between the outside perception and self-identity. What should they do and what, could they do to help?
Yeah. So what I would do with my clients is I get them to draw these triangles, right? So this I didn't invent. It's taught in NLP. It's called the logical levels. So there's 5 levels of changes. Imagine this triangle. At the top, you have identity. So that's like, I am this amazing, confident, or whatever, but today, where are you? So we make 2 triangles. The first triangle is today. So whatever version you feel you are, 5.0. So what does 6.0 look like? And what does 5.0 look like? And we describe this in it's highly detailed. Like, how do you perceive yourself? You can write pages and pages if you wanted to, or you can do bullet points, right? And then below the identity is beliefs and values. What are your beliefs? Okay. I'm good enough. I'm not good enough, whatever it is, right? And then the values, what do you value? Do you value ambition, success, blah, 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 right? And then under that is capability. So capability is your skills.
Yeah.
Can be related to work or even not, right? And then below that is the behavior. Like, how do you show up every day? What are the behaviors that you do? Do you procrastinate? Do you stick to the words that you say, things that you say you're going to do, and just everything that shows up in your behavior? What kind of behavior do you have today? And in the next version, in 6.0, what would the behaviors be? And then the last level is ecosystem. So that's like, where do you plant yourself? Who are the people that you hang out with? Because we know we become the average of the 5 people that we hang out, we spend the most time with, right? So today, okay, your ecosystem, maybe, I'm not really in the group of people that I aspire to be. And so to be 6.0, they have to be a different kind of people, a different group of people. So when you write these 2 triangle things out, you can clearly see there's a gap.
Yeah,
right?
And you see where the gaps are on each of the levels, I assume.
Yeah, then it makes it really clear what you need to work on each of the levels, not just the mindset, not just the behavior, but all 5 levels, right? In order to get to the vision. And by the way, on top of the triangle is the vision, right? So in order to get that vision in version 6.0, you clearly cannot be this triangle of version 5.0.
Yeah.
But this is really great because it really gets you to see with your eyes on paper, what do you have to do?
It's that stage of, committing to paper, visualizing nearly what does the new me or the real me need to feel and look like.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's the first step that I would recommend. And then you would do everything that is aligned with the new triangle, with the new version, whether it's the behavior, whether it's the ecosystem, whether it's the mindset, whether it's the identity. You're not going to get there in 2 days, but you constantly do those things in each of the 5 levels until one day, wow, I've really changed. Then you move on to triangle 7.0.
And you keep going. But I suppose it's that bit about how do you get people to, because with all of these things, isn't it, all of these great techniques, it's how do you get people to commit and persevere with it? Because like you say yourself, Nida, it's not going to happen overnight, is it? It's not going to happen in 2 days. It takes commitment and perseverance. And how do you get somebody to commit and persevere on that path?
Yeah. Well, it's not really how do I get them to do it or how do I get them to be motivated. And a lot of people come in, well, please motivate me and please do this. And please. Well, no, I don't have that superpower. I think I'm an amazing coach, but I couldn't do that for you. Yeah. Because you have to find out why you want to change. What's your why, right? And I have to say some people haven't discovered that why yet. And if they haven't discovered that why, sometimes they'll pay a lot of money to find a coach or whatever to magically get them from the 5.0 to the 6.0. But they're not really truly internally motivated to make the change. And with some people, you can ask questions, you can help them find clarity, but it's not with everyone. We couldn't say that it was 100% of people. Like if we coach them well, even if you got like the best coach in the world, you still couldn't change everyone, right? So that person would have to have that strong, that big why.
Yeah.
Why would they want to achieve that vision? That's like the first question. And for some people, maybe it's okay to stay where you are. Maybe you are already satisfied and happy with your life, and you don't have to do what everybody else is telling you to do. So it's really about radical acceptance. It's just like, yeah, what is the truth for you?
Yeah.
And if
and as you say, a lot of people are really happy with who they are, what they are, what they represent, and where they are in life, and that's great, isn't it? But it's about if people feel they're feeling short of what they could do and what they could be or what they could achieve, then that's when they need some help. And I can see how those techniques would really work. Within your kind of business, you talk about working with individuals not to just build a brand, or not just build a business, but build an outlier. Now, what do you mean about, what is an outlier in your terms, and how do you go about building an outlier rather than just building a business?
Yeah, well, an outlier is like, whether you're a person, whether you're a business, it's kind of like the same concept. It's like, if anybody had done like the statistic course in university or in high school, I can't remember, there are those outliers that have scored extremely high on the bell-shaped curve. Most of the people will be in the middle. So that's why it's a bell-shaped curve, right? Most of the scores will be clustered in the middle. So that's kind of like how society is.
Yeah.
Most
That's
people
just
will,
statistics, isn't it? Most people are there, yeah.
So it's truth, right? Most people will be in the middle. And then there will be people that will be on the 98, 97% percentile, right? So that's in statistics, we call those pieces of data outliers.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So that's who I work with, because I found out, I didn't always know this, right? I found out that I had this obsession with exceptionality.
Okay.
Yeah. And I as a consumer, when I hired other people, I hired other coaches or mentors or people to do my website and stuff like that. It was so frustrating for me that in the service-based industry, people were not focusing on quality.
Okay.
They were focusing a lot on sales and like, how do I get the best sales, but not on delivering the best service. So as a consumer, I was super frustrated about that. And because I really value excellence. I value integrity. So I feel like as a business owner, you need to deliver the best thing for your clients, right? But I understand that not everybody knows exactly how to do it. And a lot of people don't know the problem in their business because they don't necessarily look at it. So that's the self-awareness piece, even in the business, right? You don't want to see the leaking pipes in your house. You want to see the beautiful things.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. We don't want to look at the stuff that is uncomfortable, right? And so as a business coach, I want to raise the standards in whatever industry. I don't care. So if we raise the standards in each industry, that will have many effects. First, you serve the clients at the highest level. And when you raise your standards, everybody else will kind of look at you and wow, like this guy's doing this, so maybe I should really rethink what I'm doing. So it helps to raise the standard and the integrity of the whole industry.
Yeah.
It really challenges the standard that has been accepted for years and years and decades, right? Yeah. So that's why I work with outliers.
And I understand that the kind of bell curve moves with the outliers because the outlier then becomes the norm, and then so how do you keep this sense of, nearly I'd call it a growth mindset, going with business owners, that actually you can set up, you can change, you can evolve your business today to be an outlier and set yourself out from the crowd, but at some point that becomes the norm, and therefore you've got to have this kind of growth mindset, as I say, to always be reinventing yourself.
Yeah.
How can you encourage people to have that mindset? Because a lot of people go in, they'll fix their business once, they'll think it's job done, and then kind of move on to the new shiny thing or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But how do you get perseverance?
Yeah. So I think it's a mindset. First of all of this is a mindset. And okay, some people that come to work with me, they already kind of have that mindset. Like, yes, I've always been the kind of gold medal winner. I'm always about getting better and better and better and all that. So there are some people that are like that. And then there are some people that are amazing at what they do. They are really amazing. They have decades and decades of experience. But when it comes to business, they don't know how to transfer that love for excellence into their business, right? So yeah, it always starts with that conversation of this is an ongoing thing. It never ends. And so we help clients with working on like using tools like the Net Promoter Score, which
Yep.
they constantly have to collect.
I've used it in my business constantly. It's brilliant.
Yeah. They constantly have to monitor and interview clients, not clients that are leaving, not exit interview, but clients that are still with you. Why wait for them to leave, then interview them, right? No, you want to interview people, past clients, clients that are still with you. What are they happy about? What do they wish could be improved? What's a service that they wish you did? You could take off their plate. What's something they wish you could do, but you're not doing at the moment? So we go into this process of collecting deep insight with their clients and their employees, because a lot of time the employees know a lot, but the entrepreneur, the business owner, they're not able to go and dig into their employee's mind and what they're really thinking, because the employee, they won't give you the whole truth because of the consequences that they are afraid would happen to them. What if I said this? What if I said that? And especially if it's in an environment where there's no psychological safety, or there's kind of a rigid kind of fixed mindset where the CEO or the owner is not really willing or looking at what needs to be changed. We're doing well. Like, why do we need to change? If you're coming from that mindset, you're going to attract the same type of employees as well. And employees are not going to speak up. Even when they say they see a brilliant idea, they're not going to speak up. That's why in order to be a company, a culture of innovation, you need to have vulnerability and you need to have psychological safety as part of your culture. Yeah.
But how do you create that psychological safety? I mean, that's, you in some businesses it's inert, isn't it? The way in which the leader leads and all of that, and it's not necessarily a natural state in the modern world, isn't it?
I would have to say it is a big change, especially when the company is large. It's like a very big company, and the culture has been there for like I don't know how many years, right?
Yeah.
Think about changing the culture of a family. And a company that's like much bigger, and everybody's from a different family. So that's like, it's a big job, but it all starts from the CEO and the high level executives. That's where the first phase of change happens. And I do a lot of culture change work in organizations as well. So yes, it starts with the CEO. You have to be coached. You have to understand psychological safety. You have to understand what you're doing now that is not encouraging psychological safety. And like the whole executive team just has to change, because then the level below them will look at, wow, they've really changed, they've really got this, and now they're leading and I will follow. So it's impossible to change the lower levels if the top management doesn't change.
It's a leader follower thing. And do you see, interestingly, in that sort of creating those right cultures, in the modern world, do you see it as a generational issue with businesses that you work with?
You mean the mindset of...
Yeah, that kind of piece, is because I think the younger generations, those coming through, starting their businesses now, just the way we are in the world now, probably find it as a natural kind of way to exist and to lead. But we've got still a kind of number of generations that are older, that perhaps a bit more, I'd call old school, alpha female, alpha male, not necessarily kind of in tune with that. So do you see those generational differences?
Yes, I do definitely see those differences, and I will have to explain to them why that is the case, right? Because especially with the baby boomers and some of the Gen X's, like the Gen X baby boomers, there's because they grew up in that world.
Yeah,
they didn't have all these mindset, personal development stuff growing up, right? So it was also post-war generation. So a lot of scarcity, like they were just barely surviving, just trying to put food on the table, and just focusing on security and being able to survive, right? So the newer generation, we're born in a world of abundance, and this is so easy. If you want to do a business at 14 years old, you just go and create a YouTube channel, and you see all these things that are so possible.
Yeah.
And you're born in a world of abundance. So that's like, we just have to clearly start with that conversation of why everybody's different, because the condition that you were born in has a big impact on your mindset and what you believe. And that's like in the body, you remember these things, right? It's like the body keeps the score. You're in those generations, that's why they're risk averse. Yeah. And they also don't understand these new topics. It's not that easy. You don't change your mindset and your beliefs overnight, right?
It's a journey, isn't it? And
it is a journey.
It's back to that positioning piece and that perseverance and things not happening overnight. And before we sort of started to record this episode, you were talking about the fact that you work across multiple countries, completely across the world. Do you see a lot of difference in this day and age, even still, between different cultures in different countries and the way in which they approach business?
Yeah, I see there's definitely the commonality, like with a generation thing. That's the commonality. I don't think it's different with whatever country you're looking at, right? And then there are different cultures in different countries as well. For example, like in America, people are more ambitious because ambition is a value that Americans value.
It's installed at a very young age, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, so we call them, the Americans, we call them like an achiever kind of like personality type, achiever, right? And like, for example, in Thailand, it's a very different thing. Like sometimes ambition is not looked as a positive, super positive thing. In the older kind of generations. It's now more positive with the newer generations because now like we have Netflix and we have YouTube and we take a lot from other countries. So through the internet, through the technology, right? But in older generations, the world was not connected like this. We did not have access to, these kind of knowledge from other countries.
Another thing that probably intrigued me was, is over time, have you seen, that the world is getting smaller, that our approach, our attitude towards things across the world is broadly, in the Western world, I suppose, similar.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, I don't know, like 1,000 years from now, what's going to happen. And I think like we will definitely see that integration. I saw a video somewhere on YouTube really long time ago. This person was predicting that in the long term, the whole world will be speaking only like 2 or 3 languages. Yeah. And they said kind of like the reason behind that is because for some countries that speak some languages, it wouldn't make sense for them to speak that language anymore because it would be economically, it would be difficult. Like, for example, if you didn't speak English, it would be hard for you to it would be a disadvantage. You wouldn't be able to communicate with other countries that kind of use English as a main language. And there's countries that have
power. That just reflects probably history, doesn't it? That you see some countries and their languages diminish or their use diminish. And coming back to you, even in that brief, background and history of yourself, you talk, you are a kind of serial entrepreneur. You've had a number of businesses yourself. You've worked in corporate life, and I've seen you describe yourself as a multi-potentialite. I think I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
What does that term really mean, and how did that lead to the creation of the businesses that you run today?
Yeah, this is a topic that I love to talk about actually, because not only am I it comes from the word multi-potentiality or multi-potential. Yeah. My brother is also very multi-potential. He's like, I think he's worse than me.
It's in the genes.
Yeah, I love taking photos. I'm a DJ, and that's my brother, and he like various things that are totally unrelated. So for me, so what does it actually mean? There are other words that mean the same thing. So sometimes they call it polymath. So it's actually an educational and psychological term referring to the ability and preference of a person, particularly one of strong intellectual or artistic curiosity, to excel in 2 or more different fields, someone with many interests and creative pursuits. So that's kind of the definition of it. Yeah. And Education Week has another kind of way of explaining this. So they say that it's the state of having many exceptional talents, any one or more of which could make a great career for that person. So gifted children often, but not always, have multi-potentiality. So their advanced intellectual abilities and their intense curiosity make them prime candidates for excelling in multiple areas. Now, it might sound great and amazing, but it's also difficult.
Yeah.
How would it be difficult? Because if you're pursuing three things, like you're juggling three things, right? It can be very overwhelming for you.
Yeah.
And you're competing in an industry where these people all have 40 years of experience doing just that one thing.
Yeah.
So I think there's always a struggle of and we all have the same amount of time per day, right?
And a lot of success, isn't it? That is driven by, in my opinion, you may disagree, but in my opinion, a lot of success is about creating, focus and a passion, probably for one thing. So you become really passionate about something, be great at it, and really create focus. Now, if you have that kind of characteristic in you, how do you create that focus? Or are you always wanting to dip into new things and see how you perform in different areas of life?
Yeah, it could go both ways, and I've seen this happen. If you don't really consciously look at this and understand, oh, this is me, I'm potential, I have this multi-potential thing, then you really get into the game of oh, I should try this, and then you do for 2 years, and then I'm bored, and then I'll do this and do this and do this, and then it can get really hectic, and you can never get to the level of real success. So for me, how I look at this is you have to be able to bring that unconscious competency. So a lot of the things that you are passionate and you love doing, can do very well, is in your conscious. You're not always conscious about it, right? One of the things was I was not conscious about being great at psychology, even though I've been doing it my whole life, right? So when I understood that, so I'm great at business and marketing and understanding people and psychology, and love working with people on all these issues. I can't even choose whether it's going to be business or love or life or parenting.
Yeah.
Right? It's just all of it. And I really, as someone that is like that, I can explain that it's you really cannot just cut something and stick with one thing. It will be almost like a frustration that you haven't fulfilled your need or your desire. You'll always constantly be thinking it's not FOMO. It's not the fear of missing out. It's a totally different thing. It's not the shiny object syndrome that most people have. It's not like that. It's you have this really strong, intense desire to do these things because it's something that it's your passion. You're really great at it. It is your strengths. So you can see a lot of these people have really strong skills and intelligence on the artistic side and also on the logic side.
Okay.
So it's both sides of the brain, you know what I mean?
The left side, right side brain thing going on in equal measure. Yeah.
So how I use that to my benefit was the thing that I do in business coaching, or I don't really want to say it's business coaching, because then CEOs or entrepreneurs are working with me about the family and personal issues and relationships and self-identity and all that as well. So I kind of use that to my benefit. I integrate everything in there, and I love creative and art. So I find a way to integrate that into my work.
So you've it's about being self-aware again, isn't it? I suppose, and being self-aware that you've created the business that enables you to play to the strengths and the multiple kind of facets of things in life that you are passionate about and enjoy and are good at.
Exactly. If you were an owner of a restaurant, but you love playing the piano, why don't you bring a piano into the restaurant and play the piano as well? Instead of going out and creating an album and competing with whoever, like Alicia Keys, right? So you can you don't have to be number one in all these things that you're amazing at. You can choose to have a focus, a core focus, and then you integrate the rest of the things into that thing. Yeah, because it's you fulfill you feel alive and you get fulfillment through doing these things. It's not about I have to be the number one in this and that and everything, right? So I think it's about being conscious of what are those things that you're really great and passionate about. How do you integrate it into that thing that you're super, super great at? And even if you can't integrate it, you can make it into a hobby. And you can still do these things, but when you're not aware of this, you keep why can't I just stick to one thing? What's the problem with me? I have this, I'm not bored at this thing number one, but I want to go. I have this deep desire of doing number two and number three and number four. I can't help myself,
Yeah.
When you're not aware, then you start to jump from thing to thing to thing. And
you then become distracted, and then you do that piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really good.
So that's how I kind of integrate everything. And then, so you don't become a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
You use all these things that you're really amazing at, and you integrate it into one or two things, not more than that.
Yeah,
I would say.
Definitely. And I suppose that must have taken you, it's taken you a lifetime to get to that place, I suppose, Nida. It's not, again, something that happens overnight. It's being patient with yourself, and I suppose using a coach or some form of technique and tool to come back to that sense of understanding, self-identity, self-awareness, don't we? I mean, so much success for business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs comes from that, doesn't it?
Yeah. For me, I think I discovered all this through a lot of self-learning, which is also another characteristic of people that are multi-potential. We do a lot of self-study. We like to learn things on our own. Okay. We're just very naturally curious all the time, intensely curious about a lot of things, maybe not everything, but a lot of things. And so when we have a challenge in our mind, we're reading about it, okay, searching about it. Oh, what's going on with me? And, and then we try to introspect a lot, and I think through personal development and through reading a lot and self-study and introspecting and trying to analyze your whole problem kind of helped me understand this whole thing. But it started out with that working with parents in the child development center. That was the starting point of understanding that, okay, psychology is the main piece here. And then clarity came along the way, so that's where when people they find something that they really love, just try it. A lot of people waiting to be confident before they start it.
Yeah. It doesn't work. Take that first step, make that move, get on with it type thing.
It's the opposite. You start, then you become confident, right? Yeah. You start, then you know whether you're on the right path or not. You don't know whether this is the right path, then you start it, right? People have got it, most people have got it swapped around. Yeah.
I suppose that's that risk-adverse nature of a lot of human beings, isn't it?
It is. Stay safe, wanting to be sure.
Yeah,
I need to be sure before I start.
Yeah, I want to know that I can succeed before I start. But it takes a bit of mental toughness, doesn't it, sometimes, to make that jump, that self-confidence and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nida, I've loved our conversation. As we wrap up our conversation, I always, and I'm intrigued to know your answer to this, I always end with the same final question, which is, what's your personal definition of success? What does success mean to you?
Wow, that sounds like a simple question, but it is a hard question to answer. But the first word that popped up into my mind was just happy. True happiness, of course, not happiness in how the society sees it as happiness. And how do I know that I'm happy? I will feel alive. It's about aliveness. If you wake up every day and you know what you're doing in this world, whether it's for yourself, your family, the world, community, society, and you have a purpose and you're doing what you love to do, which is passion piece. So passion, purpose, and you live your life with all these elements that are aligned with who you want to be. Yeah, that for me is success.
Brilliant. Great definition. Nida, if people want to learn more about you, more about what you do, where can they go?
Well, the best place would be my website, and there's a free quiz as well. So they can go to NidaLeard.com, and at the end of the page, there's actually a free quiz where people can go and answer a few questions, and we send them a blueprint how to grow into this outlier and make the business into an outlier. Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. I've loved our conversation. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, your insights, and just generally, Nida, your passion for life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Warren.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed, and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing, and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvedmembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.